Newcomer. Have a seat. So we're in Revelation chapter 17 about the mystery Babylon riding a seven-headed beast. And it's a mystery. People have different opinions about this, about the beast and this beast and the woman. I'll tell you the two major beliefs about who the beast is and who the woman is. I used to believe, and probably most Christians have believed, that is Rome and the woman is the Catholic Church. And then I came across a book by Joel Richardson, and he makes a very good case that it's Islam. And so I've been kind of persuaded over to that view at this point, that that fourth empire that Daniel saw, the fourth beast, is Islam, and then it'll be revived in the end, and the woman riding the beast is Mecca or Saudi Arabia, and and it's the heart and the womb, if you will, the womb and the heart of the Islamic religion. So let's go through the text and look at some of those things. It takes too much time to study it all completely and assimilate it to where I can repeat everything, but let's look how much we can cover here through chapter 17. It says, "There came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials." Now remember, we covered this in chapter 16, how the seven angels poured out the vials. So once again, you see how the book of Revelation takes you all the way to the end, then it comes back and says, oh, let's look at the same time period from a different perspective. And this time it is about the great whore. And so he comes back to that time period before the seven vials are poured out. So came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. So the context, or the subject of this verse is the judgment of the great whore, and where she is sitting on many waters. And later in the same chapter he says that the many waters are peoples and tongues and nations, or something like that. And this is what he says that the woman is doing, which also says it's a city. With whom, so it's the judgment of the great whore, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So notice that you have two main people, or groups, the kings of the earth, and then you have the inhabitants of the earth. And the kings of the earth did the fornicating, political, no doubt it's mostly political and probably religious. I don't know how much is religious, but one example that this Joel Richardson brought out about Saudi Arabia buying out presidents. Jimmy Carter, for instance, got millions of dollars from them, and then shortly afterward, he writes a book attacking Israel, and not speaking out of the corruption of Saudi Arabia. So he sells America, so to speak, or he sells the truth of his soul, basically, and politically, if you will, or however you want to say that, he fornicates with this woman. In other words, there's a corruption going on politically, and of course, there's all kinds of sexual immorality going on over there as well. But so he says, the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk. In other words, they are influenced, they are under the stupor of these illicit relationships. So you have the kings of the earth, and then you have the inhabitants of the earth. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. So this woman apparently is in the wilderness, in the desert. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So there's this 7-headed beast that this woman is riding, and the beast is scarlet-colored. And so that's one of the reasons we thought that's the Catholic Church, because they dress in scarlet and purple. But I am still open to that. But one of the main characteristics of this beast, that it's full of names of blasphemy. And it has 7 heads, 10 horns. We'll look at that later. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. So this woman, you just read that, she's pretty gaudy, loud. She's a cold-blooded killer. She is promiscuous. She has a cup in her hand full, think about that, just full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Abominations, that's wickedness, idolatry. And then filthiness, that's dirty. So this woman is like a major source, if not the source, of all the corruption and filthiness of the earth. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Think about that, of the earth. It's like worldwide. Mystery, Babylon the Great, so there's a name. Now this name Babylon might not mean literal Babylon like over in Iraq. There is a city named Babylon. I think it's ancient Babylon. But I suspect this is a symbolic name that can mean, there's probably been different cities throughout history. In other words, it's the devil's city. The main city that the devil inhabits or runs and spreads his religion and the evil. And so I believe it probably has been in different cities, and possibly there will be a city built yet, or maybe it's in the process of being built right now. In fact, there is a city being built over in Saudi Arabia that is very unique, and it's going to be the center of commerce, which we see in chapter 18 is all about commerce and trading. And it's called The Line, if you want to look it up. The Line. It's like 120 miles long, I think. That's like a pretty long city. It goes from the Red Sea all the way over into the desert, and 500 meters or 500 feet high, I think, or something like that. And so it's a tremendous latest technology that they're working on. So I suspect if they get that done, that will probably be the Babylon the Great. So we'll see. But something to keep an eye on. And of course, that would be Islam. The mother of harlots, the abomination of the earth. By the way, Saudi Arabia has bought out more presidents and kings than probably anybody else. They are the richest people from all the oil they got over there. And they have been showing off their riches like nobody else. Billions and billions of dollars. So that's one other reason. I used to think it's the Catholic Church because they have a lot of riches and they display it and all that. So we'll see. Keep an eye on either one. I think that the reason that Islam, being the harlot and riding the beast, makes more sense to me is because they go back in ancient history as far as being enemies of the Jews. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints. Islam is killing. Think about who is killing more Christians than anybody else right now. Is the Catholic Church killing Christians? They used to, but was it year 2000 somewhere they publicly apologized? Now you could say that might have been a trick or something and wasn't sincere, but that is a far cry from going out and beheading and just killing whole churches right now. Like the Islamic people are. It's something to consider, though, that the Catholic Church has apologized and is not killing Christians as far as I know. But Islam is killing Christians and has been for the last number of decades, if I have it right. And they're still at it. A lot of churches are being burnt and people are being killed, even right now, that we don't really see in the news. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints. One of the main characteristics of this woman, think about that, she's drunk, like she has a lot. Like when you drink a little sip, you don't get drunk, but this woman, she's drunk. And what she's drunken of is the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. So it's interesting that she makes people drunk, and she also gets drunk. She makes the inhabitants of the earth drunk with the wine of her fornication. And she herself is drunk with the blood of the saints. So this is a pretty wicked woman. She's like I said, a cold-blooded killer. And when I saw her, now remember we're personifying her. John is personifying as one woman, but it's symbolic of a whole religion, a city. And probably even bigger than the city, but maybe the whole state. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. So John was just blown away. So we have some new figures, if we will, here in Revelation 17. We got a whore. That's first that Revelation mentioned, a whore. We've been going through the seal period, the trumpet period, the vial period, and we've read about a woman giving birth to the man-child in chapter 12. We've read about the beast in chapter 13, the great dragon, the great red dragon. And now we come across the great whore, the devil's woman, right? So we basically, the book of Revelation, like one guy said, is a tale of two cities. You've got God's city and you've got the devil's city. And so we got the other major figures here is the kings of the earth, inhabitants of the earth, they're drunk with the wine of fornication, scarlet-colored beast, with 7 heads and 10 horns. We'll look at that, 7 heads and 10 horns a little bit later. The saints mentioned here, whose blood she was drunk with. And then we got 10 kings. That's the 10 horns, by the way. And then we got the Lamb and his army that we're going to see, I believe, in verse 14. Now, some features, some key aspects of this great whore is that she is impure, contrasted to the bride, the Lamb's wife. In chapter 19, I believe, or maybe it's 21, another angel, maybe it's the same angel, has a vial of wrath. He takes John and says, I want to show you the Lamb's wife, or the bride, the Lamb's wife. So first he shows the devil's wife, if you will, the great whore, the center of idolatry and fornication, and has influence over the kings of the earth. Shows John that woman, and then he shows the bride, the Lamb's wife, so you can see a contrast of the two main women in the Bible. Sits upon many waters. Kings of the earth are her lovers. The woman sitting on a scarlet-colored beast. She's sitting on a scarlet-colored beast. When a woman is sitting on a beast, she's riding the beast. And she is guiding the beast. And the beast is carrying her along. I mean, when you ride a horse, the horse helps you. It takes you places that you couldn't go by yourself. So this woman is riding, but she is not the beast. She herself is not the beast. She's riding it. So the beast and the woman have a tremendous symbiotic relationship. It's quite a match made in hell. The beast is full of names of blasphemy, riding a beast with 7 heads, 10 horns, dressed in purple and scarlet, decked with expensive jewelry. Nobody has as much money as Saudi Arabia. Has a golden cup full of abominations and filthiness of the earth. That was another feature that we thought applied to the Catholic Church, and maybe that is the case. I'm not here to be dogmatic. She is Mystery Babylon. She is a city. She's drunk with the blood of saints, inspires great admiration. John, are you admiring this woman? His jaw dropped. I mean, he just looked at this woman, and I couldn't help but admire her. She strikes your vision as somebody big and tremendous and has richly, and of the beast that carrieth her, there's the word carry. So the beast is carrying the woman. And she has the reins, but the beast, so there's a relationship. And this beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, the angel's going to tell us that the 10 horns are 10 kings. But he doesn't really tell us who well, he does say the 7 heads. He does mention something about the seven heads and what they are. But first, the angel, is trying to explain to John the mystery of the woman and the beast, but then he switches. You'd think he would address the woman first because he already did, but then when he goes on to explain them, he goes to the beast. He says, the beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. So the beast that he's looking at that has 7 heads and 10 horns, he says that, that's what I think that he means. That's the beast he's referring to. The beast that thou sawest was. It was in the past, and is not right now. Of course, down the bottom of the verse it says, and yet is, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. So the beast is now in the bottomless pit, but it is not on the earth. It was in the past, is not now, and shall in the future ascend out of the bottomless pit. So there's a demonic aspect to this beast. The devil himself, perhaps, or maybe it's some figure that is in hell right now. And go into perdition. So he comes out of the pit but goes back into perdition at the second coming. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder. Shall wonder. They get enraptured and their attention is captivated by this tremendous creature, this tremendous person who will rise in the end times. And he says, whose names, these are the people who will be swept away in wonder at this person who is over this kingdom. If you'll read your Bible like Daniel chapter 7, you'll find out a direct, and I'll show you, direct interpretation of what the Bible means when it says the beast. The king and the kingdom. That's the beast that we're talking about. Because the king and kingdom, they go together. They that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life, but whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. Either he's referring to the names or just the book that was from the foundation of the world. But those people who don't have their names in the book, whose names were not written in the book of life, all right? Those people, he says, are the ones who will wonder at the beast that'll come out of hell or out of the bottomless pit, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. When they behold the beast, there's something that strikes the vision, that the beast has features and has abilities. A mouth is his main ability, but also just looking at him, apparently, it says there. It doesn't say it when they hear the beast. It says when they look at the beast. It inspires. Perhaps what inspires them so much is they see on TV that the guy had and so they are just totally in wonder at this beast. When they behold the beast that was, maybe he was even in power already, and then all of a sudden he's not, he dies, and yet is brought back. That's one interpretation that I have. I think I have more to say about that, but let's keep going to verse 9. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. There's the angel still talking to John. He says, I'm going to show you the mystery of the woman and the beast. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. So this 7-headed beast, he says, are 7 mountains. And I'm not sure if he means the physical hills, which Rome is known to have been built on 7 hills. Saudi Arabia has 7 mountains as well. But, or is he talking about nations? Because the mountains do indicate, or do talk about, or are symbols of nations in the Bible. But he says that the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. You have actually 3 things that the woman sits on in this chapter. She's sitting on many waters, which refer to peoples and tongues and nations. She's sitting on a beast. Now, that makes sense. The beast is an empire. An empire is people. And the reason it's called a beast, when you study beasts, they go back all the way back to Daniel. And so the empire, the devil's empire, the Antichrist empire, will somehow probably be the same territory as the former beasts were ruling. And I suspect 7 of them have been ruling that territory. That's the 7 heads. Well, let's see. It says the 7 heads of 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and then look at verse 10. And there are 7 kings. 7 kings. 7 kings. So we have 4 beasts in the book of Daniel, the 4 major empires that in Daniel's time, counting from Daniel's time down, that sum up the history of the devil's empires down to the end. 4 empires, but there are 7 kings, you know. That's not the 10 horns, that's 10. There's the 7 kings, you have to somehow account for those. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, the 6, 1 is, and the other, that's to be the 7th, is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. You realize there's so much in there, it's mysterious. And then he says this, there's another one, an 8th, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7 and goeth into perdition. Now, is your mind a little overwhelmed there with all that? So let's look at that. So what the angel told Daniel so far is there's 7 kings. 7 kings, which I believe is talking about the 7 heads of that beast that the woman is riding. And I'll show you where I think that all comes together. 7 heads, 5 are fallen, 1 is at this point, he said, at that time, 1 is still to come. But then there's an 8th yet on top of that. Okay, here is Bible definition of the beast. Daniel 7:17. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth. 4 kings which shall arise out of the earth. Of course, Nebuchadnezzar was the first one, I believe. And then there was Medo-Persia. We'll look at that. And thus he said in verse 23, that was 7:17, and then verse 23 he says, another definition of the beast or interpretation. Thus he said, the 4th beast shall be what? The 4th kingdom. So here we have a direct explanation what a beast is in the Bible. It's the king and a kingdom. First kingdom, first beast, first king. So when you refer to a beast, you could be talking about the kingdom or the king running that kingdom, or both. The 4th beast shall be the 4th kingdom upon earth, the last kingdom, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. Now we have thought that was Rome. But it's hard to fit that in with the idea that Rome broke in pieces. They actually would not crush the country that they overtook. They would bring in their latest, I don't know if you want to call it technology, but their latest, they would actually build up the city, the country, and put roads in. And there's the famous saying, all roads lead to Rome, So they wouldn't crush a city, they would build it up. But then rule it and make them pay taxes and deal and trade with it and stuff like that. So that's one argument that I find is a pretty strong argument that can't be Rome, because they didn't really tread it down and break in pieces like Islam did. Islam, they will burn down and get rid of the historical landmarks and crush the other religions and get rid of it and establish themselves as the one religion and put in their Sharia law. Anyway, 4 major kingdoms, counting from Nebuchadnezzar. First one in this list here, first one was a lion, had eagle's wings, that was Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon. Second one is Medo-Persian Empire, it's a bear. Third one is a leopard, 4 wings, 4 heads. So that's the Greek Empire, Alexander the Great. And then Daniel saw a 4th beast, but it didn't say what animal it was. It just says, I saw a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. 10 horns. I think that's the woman, that's the beast the woman is riding, because that beast has 10 horns. The last empire that the Antichrist is going to run. And, okay, so John, he saw this fourth beast. I believe that was the fourth beast that he saw in Revelation 13:1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns. 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon his horns 10 crowns. And upon his heads the name of blasphemy. There's that characteristic again, name of blasphemy on all its heads. Okay, so think about this. It started from Daniel all the way, same territory. I would, if you adopt this belief that it's Islam, it's the last empire, which Rome, here's the thing, according to Joel Richardson's book, Rome never got Babylon except for a few, I don't know, not a very, very short time. And then the guy who conquered it, I think he had a stroke or he got sick or something and he went back home. So they never really conquered that whole area. So, but Islam did. So I think it makes so much sense that the people group, starting from Ishmael, the Arabs, the Muslims, that historical beast that started from Daniel, Babylon, and another beast comes along and conquers the same area, Medo-Persia, Cyrus the Great, and then Alexander the Great, he gets the same area. And then the fourth one, and of course Rome is in that count, and I'll show you. They came in and sacked Jerusalem in 70 AD, but the soldiers, they were Arabs. They were Arabs. I know it was a European Roman, Titus was a Roman prince. But Daniel chapter 9, when it talks about the people coming to, or destroying Jerusalem, you know what it says? It says, and the people of the prince that shall come, he shall make her desolate. Why didn't he say, the prince shall come and make her desolate? Meaning the focus of the identity would be on the prince. But since it says the people of the prince, he makes the people the identity as to who did it. I think that's very significant. And then you go to Josephus, and I think there's another reference in history that you can verify that it was Arabs, mostly Arabs, that came and actually did the destroying of Jerusalem. So that would lend back to the idea that although Rome was in power, they did use Arabs, and they had that original Jew-hating spirit in them that went all the way back to the beginning. So they have a beast that has 7 heads. And look at this. It was like a leopard. So the main body of this beast that John saw, which is the last empire, the fourth one, if you count from Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar, and look at it, was like a leopard. It had feet like a bear and mouth like a lion. Do you remember who those 3 beasts were mentioned in Daniel chapter 7? I believe it was, right? The lion was Babylon. The bear was Medo-Persia. And the leopard was Alexander the Great, because he was very swift in conquering that Middle Eastern area there. So this beast right here that John is looking at, the fourth one, has the characteristics of all the 3 ones in the past. It's the same area, and it has the same Jew-hating spirit in it, conquering that whole area. Of course, right now, the Jews are doing their best to not be conquered again. So it's a miracle that they have their own state at this point. So he says, having 7 heads. And that's in 13:1. This beast has 7 heads. In 17:3, 7 heads, 10 horns. 12:3, the dragon has 7 heads and 10 horns. So I believe that the devil himself is dwelling in this beast. And then, of course, he mentioned about 7 kings. And I believe that's the reason it's a 7-headed beast. You would expect it to be 4-headed maybe, but it's a 7-headed beast. So we got to look for an explanation for 7. Okay? All right? So the first empire that persecuted God's people, you know who it was? Egypt. That was the very first nation that ruled over God's people. Egyptian empire. And then they got out of that empire. They overcame. They established their own kingdom. But then they fell away from God. And then the Assyrian empire comes in and takes captive the 10 tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel. And then later, Babylon comes in and takes captive the nation of Israel. And then Medo-Persia takes over and has the authority over the Holy Lands. And then, we already covered, so follow this. You have Egypt and Assyria, but then Babylon is where Daniel is, and he gets the vision of the 4 major beasts after, like counting from Daniel on, or from Babylon onward. And it's Babylon, Medo-Persia, Grecian Empire, but I believe Daniel's 4th beast is not this Roman Empire here, the 6th in this list, but the Islamic Empire. Now, look what he says here in 17:10. And there are 7 kings. We looked at 6 at this point. Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. That's 6. Now, look what, I think this makes the most sense. 5 are fallen. Let's go back to the list. 5 are fallen. That's all the way down to the Greek Empire. They had already moved on or been conquered at this point. At the time that there's another one, in addition to Rome, if this interpretation is right, and the other is not yet come. Now, we used to believe that that's Rome revived. And I'm not here to say that's totally wrong. I'm just saying I think it makes more sense that there is an additional one in this list of 7. Right? Rome is the 6th. Well, you got to count for 8. 7, in other words, 7, but then a revived 7th, which is the 8th. And if you don't put Rome and then Islam in addition to that, you kind of don't have enough. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Let's go back to that list. You have Egyptian Empire, Assyrian, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and then the other that is not yet come, and the beast that was and is not, is the 8th, and is of the 7. Who is the other that is not yet come? I believe it's Islam. Islamic Empire is the final empire, and apparently it will go through a time where it appears it's dead and it will be revived again. And so I'm not sure how to explain all that unless something happens to them still in the future. Maybe the Psalm 83 and Ezekiel 38. But then that revived Islamic Empire will have 10 kings. Okay? 10 kings. So we got King Nebuchadnezzar, Babylonian Empire, Cyrus, Medo-Persian Empire, Alexander the Great, and then Islam, the 4th beast, jump past Rome in this list here. In this list. Okay? Because Rome never really conquered Babylon, that whole area, fully. The beast that thou sawest was. Now let's look at some more about this last tremendous beast here that everybody's going to wonder at. It was. Now that makes sense that the beast was, if you understand that a modern day beast can be a continuation of the former beasts all the way back to, let's say, Egypt even, all the way back. Or if you want to start counting from Daniel 7, then just start counting from Babylon. You know, the beast that thou sawest was in history. And at this point, he says, is not. That is probably talking about not in John's specific day, but in the future time where John was taken to. So there's a time when the beast will not be in power, apparently. And then shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, unless it's talking about the deadly wound where the Antichrist is apparently put to death by a wound in the head, and then comes back up out of the bottomless pit and then goes into perdition. And everybody will wonder, whose names are not in the book of life, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. By the way, you realize there's a parallel there with that is and is not and yet is with Christ, sort of. He is and he was and is, not is not. He was and is to come. The devil's man was and is not and is to come, shall ascend. So, remember, the beast refers to a kingdom and refers to a man. The beast ascends from the bottomless pit in Revelation 17:8 and 11:7. Two references. By the way, the bottomless pit, that phrase shows up only like twice in Revelation 9, one time in 11, I think. Yeah, right here, and then 17:8, and then in chapter 20, so what, half a dozen times. And I wonder if they are all connected to this idea of a son of perdition coming up out of the bottomless pit. But Paul also has something to say about that man of sin coming up out of the bottomless pit. He said it a little bit different. He didn't say it was a beast. He said it this way: let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first. But notice he's called the son of perdition. There's like not a son, not like one of many, as if there's only one. The son of perdition. That phrase, son of perdition, only appears twice in the Bible. Here's the other one. John 17:12. Jesus is praying to the Father. While I was with them in the world, I kept them in thy name. Those that thou gavest me I have kept, and none of them is lost, but the son of perdition. Now you know who that was. It's Judas. And he calls him the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled. We have another interesting clue about this man, Judas. In Acts 1:25 says that he might go to his own place. Judas, by transgression, fell that he might go to his own place. Doesn't say that about any other sinner that I know of. Do you remember anybody else be designated to have his own place in hell, like that was his place from maybe even before he went there? That was his place. Maybe he came from there even. There's this speculation that I've read that Judas' soul and spirit, perhaps, was in hell and then incarnated himself in Judas' body. And then he goes back to his own place when he transgresses and betrays the Son of God. And then he's there now. So maybe in that way, well, let's keep going. Now let's look at perdition. The word perdition appears 8 times and always means destruction. And well, here, look at this one in Hebrews 10:39. But we are not of them who draw back unto perdition, but what's the opposite? But of them that believe to the saving of the soul. So if your soul is not saved, or you draw back from the finished work of Christ, the blood of the everlasting covenant, you draw back and stop believing, he says you go back unto, we're not of them who draw back unto perdition, but believe to the saving of the soul. So perdition is to not be saved, it's to be lost. 2 Peter 3:7, but the heavens and the earth which are now by the same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. So perdition has to do with fire and day of judgment, and has to do with ungodly men. So it's clearly not just losing your rewards or something because as a Christian you gave in to destructive habits or something like that. No, this is damnation. Total and complete destruction of ungodly men. So, son of perdition. Think about the son of perdition. Like one guy said, a spawn of hell. An offspring of destruction. An offspring of hell. Son of perdition. What a phrase. What an ugly creature. And yet, people are totally in awe when he shows up. Son of perdition is revealed. Man of sin. Man of sin. So this beast could mean not just empire, but the king of an empire. He's called the man of sin. He's called the son of perdition. He's the eighth and is of the seven. This creature has such abilities because, you know why? Because he will have all the abilities of the former kings wrapped up in himself. Demonically, no doubt. Is of the seven former kings. He was in the past, and we wonder, well, is he talking about Judas? There's a strong connection because son of perdition is talking about the Antichrist, and the other reference to the son of perdition is Judas. That's something to think about. Was this, when he says he was that Judas? And is not, Judas is not right now, and yet he is in hell. Is not and yet is, down in hell. He rises from the bottomless pit and incarnates himself in the seventh king / eighth, it'll be the seventh empire. It'll appear to die and then be revived again. So it'll be the eighth of the seven, of all the seven. Not of the sevenths, but of all seven former ones. Okay, so that was a lot to take in. So whoever this Antichrist is, I think he'll be in the same territory, ruling over the same empire, and he will be the beast running that empire, and he will have tremendous abilities. He will have a mouth speaking great things, and he'll have tremendous diplomatic abilities to talk people into following him. He'll have a religious... So this beast, which spans all the way back to Daniel's time and maybe even back to Egypt, and now has all of that wrapped up in the final empire. This beast has 10 kings running it. The revived empire, I believe, is what he's talking about, will have 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. And then it says they'll give their mind, they have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. And then I think in verse 14, look at this. They shall make war with the Lamb. This final empire, if it's not Islam and it is Rome, then there'll have to be some tremendous changes yet. Rome, honestly, I can't see it. But maybe they will change yet and revive and start beheading people, which is not really what they've been doing in the past. I know they did some. I think Paul was beheaded, I believe, but the predominant way has not been beheading, but Islam has been. It's kind of like people have been looking to Rome, and yet this other empire has been doing pretty much everything the Bible says and even more, and yet we haven't been looking at them. I'm not sure why. So I think it's certainly something to take into consideration. And another, remember, Islamic, they go back, way back in history, hating the Jews. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. So this beast with 10 kings, they all give their power to the beast, and they have one mind to give it, and they have one final shot at overcoming the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords, King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. I like that. They that are with him. He is the captain of our salvation, and he has redeemed us, and here we are, I believe, the church following him on white horses. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Direct interpretation of what the waters mean. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast. Now this is another interesting thing. The 10 final kings that are running or have, some power or will have power 1 hour, they turn on the woman, on the whore. They turn on the whore. The 10 horns, not the kings of the earth, just these 10. The woman is riding this beast, has 10 horns right in the front of it, and there's 7 heads, but there's 10 horns. And all of a sudden, those 10 horns, which are 10 kings, they turn on the woman. They shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked. She's wearing these gaudy purple and red clothing, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Now, if our interpretation is correct, that woman is Saudi Arabia, you know, the interpretation with this then would be that Saudi Arabia is Sunni, and the Shiite Muslims hate the Sunni Muslims almost more than non-believers. I mean, they think they are, you see, when you have somebody who is taking your name but then not believing like you do, that's worse than just not. That's like an Amish person leaving the Amish and yet calling himself Amish. The Amish hate that more than you just going English all the way. So they hate the Sunnis with a passion. And that's what Saudi Arabia is. They have spent more money than anybody else to spread their religion. They've spent billions and billions of dollars. You could go online and order a free copy of the Quran and a bunch of other material for free. They fund it. I mean, they have so much money. And one day, apparently, maybe the city that they're actually building right now, called The Line, will get burned up. But nonetheless, 10 kings will turn on the whore to Babylon and will make her desolate and burn her with fire. And you will read in chapter 18 how the kings of the earth, I'll show you, and everybody else, almost everybody else, will lament her and bewail her. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill His will. Remember, we have not read about the whore all the way through Revelation till chapter 17. And now we see how she actually gets taken out. She gets burnt by these 10 kings. Blow her up. By the way, the fourth empire, the last empire, it breaks in pieces. You know, that's what happens when you blow things up with bombs. It breaks in pieces. That's their main characteristic of breaking a nation, is blow it up. So that's another argument for Islam versus Rome. For God has put in their hearts to fulfill His will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Reigns over the kings. So the city has power over kings, and yet the kings are supporting her. Like they are carrying her. The beast is carrying her, and yet she's reigning over the beast. The two have a tremendous symbiotic relationship and are relying on each other. It's like the perfect match made in hell. The beast that comes up out of the bottomless pit is what she's writing. With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. And remember, the city is reigning over the kings of the earth. Those kings cannot be the ones who turn on her. I believe the 10 kings are 10 unique kings separate from the kings of the earth. Look what the kings of the earth do. They bewail her. They are sorry she's burning. The 10 kings of this beast, they're more local in that area right there. They're probably Iraq, Iran, and Sudan maybe, and Jordan, and Egypt probably, and maybe Pakistan, I don't know, Turkey. I don't know who all is Sunni and who is Shia, I can't remember, but that whole area apparently will turn on Saudi Arabia and burn that city. And so, but then the rest of the world, the other kings, the kings of the earth, they are bewailing her and lamenting her when they shall see the smoke of her burning and say, alas, alas, and crying and putting dust on their heads and just totally like, man, we got so rich from her and we're living a high life. So much trading going on. So I just thought a little sideline, a little tidbit clue, an interesting idea that the kings of the earth are not the 10 kings. The 10 kings are not the kings of the earth. So the 10 horns will hate the whore. They are the 10 kings locally, and then the rest of the world will be crying and wailing. And but notice, the 10 local ones will be they will be making war with the Lamb. The 10 local kings, the 10 heads of the 10 horns of this final beast, they shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. But the kings of the earth are also part of this battle. A broader coalition than just these 10 kings. 19:19, I saw the beast and the kings of the earth. not just the 10 kings, the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war with him that sat on the horse and against his army. Unless it's two different wars. But in the final war, all of the kings of the earth are involved. Okay, so that to me is getting a little more clear to me. I don't know if it's to you. The beast that will finally come against Christ in the end has its roots going all the way back. Babylon, especially Babylon, that area. And so we have had this dual battle, this battle between good and evil, but it's between, basically, isn't it between the Muslims and the God's people? The Arabs and God's people? It's very interesting. And somehow we've not been looking at Muslims in Bible prophecy, but looking at Rome. I'm just saying, let's take it all into consideration and watch. Okay? But if it is Islam, I think it makes a lot of sense that because they are dominating that area even as we speak, we will see, and some people are actually saying might be, what's his name, Ben Salman or whatever his name is, the king of Saudi Arabia, that he might be the Antichrist, and he's very smooth, and he's able to make peace, unlike the other Muslims are, make peace with Western nations and get along. We might see him rise to the top yet and become that tremendous beast and have all those abilities and then fulfill the end time. But then again, he might, there's another theory that I have that they will get conquered yet and prolong the time and then rise in the future as the eighths, okay, get revived. So we will see, but it's good to know which side you're on, right? They think they're on the right side, and they are one of the most, I think they're the fastest growing religion in the world. And so they have a tremendous appeal to the younger generation for some odd reason. It's amazing. They kill people, and yet people want to join them. And so have you noticed since October 7, when Israel was attacked in that tremendous bloody attack like that, how it has revealed the Islamic influence in our own nation even? I didn't know that our main institutions, like the universities, they're more pro-Palestine than God's people, you know. It's like, what? They have infiltrated us in tremendous ways. We are drinking the wine of, as a nation, we're drinking the wine of her corruption, you know, her idolatry, and, you know, fornication, filthiness, and abomination. It's abominable religion. Man, it's filthy. And so it has, we've been drinking this as a nation, like we haven't realized. And they do stupid things like drunk people do, you know. So we'll see. I think it has a great case that it is Islam. And so let's keep